Okay, Attitude family. Well, here's the reason we're here. So I tell you what, I got invited. I've told y'all on my Facebook, on some of my my YouTube videos. JJ Owens with Texas Crappie Assassins. He called me and had been on me about 6 months about these rods because I'd been testing ACCs, I've been testing bone sticks, and I like both rods. There's nothing wrong with either one of the rods. And but JJ kept saying, if you ever put one of these rods in your hand, buddy, you're going to get them. So I met JJ in Houston one day, and he had about 15 rods, and I started putting them in my hand. And I fell in love with them. They had good balance. They felt good. Well, I ended up buying the 9.2 Camo series that you can't get no more, and I think I've got the last 3 that he had. And I feel pretty good about that, and nobody else is going to get them. They're not for sale, but I love that little rod. But I also have the 10-foot Pro SE. And then JJ said, here, call this guy. So I did. His name's J.R. Oldham. This is J.R. sitting right here next to him. And he is the owner of Outlaw Crappie Poles. So I called him, and the first time I talked to him, we were on the phone for 45 minutes. And we just talked about everything. We're about the same age, and we got talking about fishing. We just had a great time.
You know you're a lot older than me.
6 months is not a lot.
That's a lot when you get to our age.
Well, yeah, it could be. You're right, it could be. So anyway, I had an opportunity. So Jay, I bought these rods from JR, and we talked, and this year he called me and said, hey, I'd really like for you to come up here and be with the Outlaw Pro staff and just come visit with us. And I said, man, I'd love to. So now I've got him right where I want him, and he can't get away from me because I know where he stays tonight. So let me introduce you to JR. So JR, let's talk a little bit about Outlaw.
All right.
How did real quick, how did it come about?
Well, there were some young men that lived up in the Kansas City area that were professional tournament fishermen. They fished a lot of tournaments, and they were tired of buying anywhere from $75 to $150 rods and trying to get those heavy fish out of the brush and breaking a lot of rock tips. And they just decided, hey, let's see if we can get one made. Let's see if we can get one made that's going to be what we want. It's going to be the strength, and we want to make them as sensitive as we can. So they designed the original outlaw. I was distributing at that time a few area lakes up in southwest Missouri. I was distributing tackle to some of the small shops. I pulled a trailer around, and they approached me they wanted me to sell their rods for them. I first said, well, guys, I don't sell online. I said, I just sell mainly terminal tackle, and small stuff that I can haul around. Anyway, they said, we want you to, if you would, we want you to try. They handed me a 10 and an 11-foot outlaw. And back at the time, it was solid black. It's what I now call our classic. And I put them in my guidebook. I was running guidance service also. And it made more difference in not only my catch rate, but the clients in my boat. I saw it improve drastically. The sensitivity I was one of those fishermen that I would tell you, I've crappie fished all my life since I was old enough to walk around the pond bank even. And I would have told you that just cut me a willow stick because I started with 10 poles.
Right.
I can catch a crappie. Until I did this, and I realized what I'd been missing, and I just went crazy over them. And so I started selling them for them and built up a pretty good sales route with the Outlaw Crappie poles. And they were having trouble getting inventory, which how well I understand now, especially this year with all the COVID and shipping problems. And I just shot off my mouth one day, and I said, guys, I'm going to have to find another rod company that I like because I've got all these dealers out there that are needing rods, and there's no inventory. And I said, and if you want to, just sell me the company.
Shame on you. They did it.
And they did. And they did. But that's been about right at 14 years ago.
Okay.
But I've always known about Outlaw that the thing that sells an Outlaw is you've got to get it in your hand.
Absolutely.
Because as an owner of a company, I can talk all day long to a lot of people. One of the hardest things of being in sales these days is you've got to earn somebody's trust before you can sell them anything. So the best way to sell an Outlaw pole is put it in your hands, especially if they get to fish with it. I had a friend that introduced me to another gentleman here in the United States that's big in the bass fishing industry. And he agreed to make me some prototypes and see if they can make my rod. Okay. Well, they had to send them to some engineers and have them ground down to see how to put them back together because he had never seen anything like it. And I started getting on the road and introducing them to people and finding people like you, Bill, and JJ, Les, that would put them in their hand and use them, and it's blowing up because we're very sensitive. We're down at the lower end of the market on price on rods these days on a good quality rod, but my goal was to keep a really good, high quality rod that us average everyday fishermen can afford.
You bet, you bet.
Not only do you have a good price point, you've got extreme sensitivity, and you've got superior durability.
So you were able to find this guy. The one
This
next
guy
to
right
you.
here?
The one next to you.
He was hard to convince.
Was he hard to convince?
You have no idea.
How come, Les? Tell me why.
I'd fished a bonehead for 8 years.
Okay.
I was used to a heavy backbone,
You bet.
heavy all the way to the tip. I like setting the hook like nobody's business. Bass fisherman. Thought that that's what I liked. JR tried for, I'm going on, 6 months probably. If I was guessing, it was around 6 months.
Pretty good spell.
There's a pretty good spell where JR was talking to me. He said, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm not saying that bonehead rods are not a good rod. He said, but I want you to stick this in your hand and just use it. I was really reluctant to do that. And one day I went out on the boat with him and Keaton, and he said, just do me a favor. Set your rod in the bottom of the boat and just use the one I brought you. So he gave me an 11-foot SE. I'd seen him demo them. Put it in my hand. What started the whole thing, though, let me back up for just a second. What started the whole thing, I was fishing with my bonehead rod. And Keaton was fishing with the Outlaw. And we're standing side by side fishing. Keaton's yanking the lips off the fish. And JR sitting in the back of the boat doing what he does. And I'm like, I said, son, I'm not getting bit. He said, Dad, you're getting bit. I said, no, I'm not getting bit. He said, Dad, you're getting bit. And he hands me the Outlaw. He convinced me to set mine in the bottom of the boat. So I set it in the bottom of the boat. All of a sudden, I felt this fish bite. Set the hook. Caught a fish. And the more I used it, the more I understood that the other rods, not necessarily just bonehead, but all the other rods that I had been using where I was thinking I wasn't feeling the bite, or I was feeling a bite, I wasn't really feeling it. You guys' testimony to that fish coming up and bumping that jig, you could feel him pick up. And from that point on, the more I put it in my hand, the more I thought, man, these are quality. And it didn't take long after that I went up to him and I said, hey, I believe in this. He said, well, what's what I want you to do? I want you to take them out and I want you to put them to the test. That's what I was telling you. I tried to boat flip with that 11-footer, tried to boat flip a 10-pound catfish with it. It wasn't that I was trying to boat flip him. I wanted to see exactly what that Outlaw would take. And he said, you should have. I said, but you told me to test it. And I mean, I literally put my hand at the base and I tried to pick him up. And that old Outlaw and I heard it go. And I knew it was going to break. And I kept the horse and I just popped it. But there ain't a crappie alive or a walleye that I know of. I don't think snapped that one. So I was really confident. When we went to Grenada, Mississippi, I boat flipped a 366. Just sucked him in the boat and didn't even think nothing about it.
Now you even trout fish.
And I trout fish with a 7.2 and 8.2. I love them. They're so sensitive.
You bet.
And just extremely sensitive rod. I was thinking about what JR was saying about the sensitivity of the rod and the durability of that rod. That's not matched, I promise you. The quality of those rods are unbelievable. It would be different if some people say, oh, man, I had a rod and I had it for a year. I've got one in the garage right now that I had when you first gave me. It still holds up, and I've had clients, I bet you I've demoed that thing 300 times at the docks. So I'm constantly demoing the rod. They hold up. The durability is just unmatched the way I see it, and that's why I was telling somebody on TikTok today. I said, if I'm selling you a product, if you guys hear me talking about a product that I use, this is not hype. I'm not gonna push it to the consumer if I don't believe in it.
Right.
That's why I say what I do about the products that I push, because I use them and I believe in them, and I'm not going to use anything else. I want something that if I put it in your hand and say, Bill, I want you to use this, I don't want you to come back to me and say, thing's a piece of junk. You got to give it some time. I've talked to some guys. You got to give them time. Because people are so used to using oak branches for.
And a lot of things that people don't understand about, and there's nothing wrong with heavy action rods.
No.
Nothing wrong at all. There's a lot of good rod companies out there. And I own Outlaw because of what I believe in and what they will do.
Yeah.
So Les, you're one of the first pro staff with him?
He's my first Oklahoma pro staff.
First Oklahoma. So we'll go ahead and introduce yourself again, Les, because I don't know how these videos are going to come out exactly. This is going to be a standalone, but I want everybody to know who you are and who you're talking about.
My name is Les Stansteifer. I live in Eufaula, Oklahoma. I am the owner, part owner of S&S Guide Service on Eufaula Lake in Oklahoma. We fish Crappie Masters National Trail. Going to fish a little bit of the Crappie USA this year, and fish the Wally Marshall Invitational this year, largest crappie tournament in the world. So we're about the loyalty to JR and our companies that we represent.
Here's the good news. We went through a period during COVID where he couldn't get rods in there, but in that there was, I don't think he told us all. I think some people knew, but not all people knew that there was a little change. So Les has got 11 foot. Is that the 11 foot or is that the 12? That's the 12 foot. I got my first one yesterday and fished with today, and that 2.3 that I caught today, that personal best I caught today, came off that 12-foot Pro SC. Let's talk about this thing, because this, I'm telling you, gang, I've got the 8-foot classics. I've got 3 of those. I've got 3 of the 10-foot Pro SCs. I've got so those are the ones that I'm using, and I'll tell you, and I've had a long conversation with JR. The 8-foot classic kind of made me nervous the first time I stuck into a big fish with it, and I was like, can I pull that 14 up here? And so I got it almost up, and I was like, no, I'm just going to grab the line because I just didn't trust it. And then finally I had that one, probably about a 13 and a half, and I was busy with my wife. Miss T was on board with me, and I think she had hooked up, and I just flipped him in, and it just came to me, and I was like, okay. The 10-foot, I don't even worry about it. The 9.2, don't worry about it. But let me tell you something. This 12-foot, tell me more about the changes we made, a little bit of the changes we made.
Okay, the original 12-foot and 14-foot Outlaw was worked on and helped designed by a gentleman, a good friend of mine now in Indiana. And what they did is they were making them for spider rigging, trolling, a lot of people call it, and they were wanting a rod that when you get the weight on it and start to bring it up, whether you're bringing it to the net or with Outlaw, you can swing them to you. A lot of them will twist, the grain will twist, and they will flop sideways and this and that, and they wanted something, put it together so that when they lift it up, it'll come straight to you.
Okay.
And that's what the original classic Outlaw 14 and 12 footer are. Okay. Now, the only thing I've changed, okay, it's still all of my Outlaws other than my 5/8s and my 5s are the original formula of our graphite.
Okay.
What we did on the 12 footers to improve it is we, first of all, the bottom third, about a third of the way from just above the first guide through the handle, I beefed up with a little more material. Okay, it changed the weight on it maybe 1/10 of an ounce at the most. At the most, but it gives it a little more stability in your handle where you've got more confidence to raise them in. But also, I switched out from the big spinning guides to the double-footed guides that are wrapped at the top and the bottom. Now, people don't realize this, but what that does for you, it adds a little more stability into that blank, but it also, you're touching it twice, so the sensitivity's got twice the opportunity to get into that blank. Okay, and that's the main difference.
We're going to be done here, but I want to tell you, if he gets to know you, or if you send him because I just ordered it because I wouldn't even want to talk to him. If you have to order a tip, and he knows you, he's going to call you. Because he called me he wouldn't even send the order out, and he called me and said, why am I sending you a tip? I said, because I was not very smart, and I backed my boat under the awning with my rod still in the, and I snapped the tip off. So it was operator error, not fish error.
Yeah.
So he may call you and ask you. So don't let him say that. No questions asked.
Well, I want to know why my stuff's breaking
What?
if I need to work on something.
But I think with that being said, that shows you that there's the personal touch with Outlaw Crappie rods, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you for your time, sir. Les, thank you for your time as always, and we'll get back to you, man. Uncle Bill, I've had a crappie attitude for 2 days, and we're going to keep that going. Y'all be safe now. Fish out.